Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Predictions. Today, we're going to be talking about Venom The Last Dance. So, as usual, we're going to be going over the pros and cons. So, let's get to it. Pros. So, Tom Hardy, we might as well talk about him. He's pretty much the only reason why people even, tolerate these Venom movies. So, Tom Hardy, he's been around for a minute. He really started to get noticed in the 2010s with Inception. Warrior, that movie was a flop, but it was well liked by the people who saw it. And then we got Dark Knight Rises. That was important. And yes, I know he got clowned on for his Bane having, a hard to understand voice with his mask and everything. But I will still stand by that. Tom Hardy's Bane was cool. I like that character, and I will stand by that. And after that, did Mad Max Fury Road, did The Revenant, did Dunkirk, and then he started doing the Venom movies. So, yeah. Yeah, but Tom Hardy, he's well known. People know who he is. As I mentioned, he's the only reason why people tolerate these movies. So, yeah, I say his presence is a pro. Another pro is the Venom movies themselves. Okay, let's talk about them. This is such a weird series of films. So we gotta start with the beginning. Well, actually, we have to start earlier than this, like way earlier, if I can find it. I don't think I can. I guess I guess superhero, I guess that works. There you are. Spider-Man 3. We gotta start with this. Because this is where Venom made his debut in the movies. But not with Tom Hardy, though. This Venom was played by Topher Grace. And I know Spider-Man 3 is mainly known for Bully Maguire and, the whole, I'm going to put some dirt in your eye and all that gloriousness. But, Topher Grace's Venom was the part that people really didn't like. Because, a lot of people just were like, oh, his Venom's not very intimidating. He's just annoying. He's just whiny. And it just wasn't good. Not to mention the character is just very forced how everything happened. Because, Eddie was introduced in the movie. He's basically a rival to Peter. He had Gwen Stacy. And, him and Peter were like trying to get like a staff job at the Daily Bugle. And so Eddie decides to, because he had a bad experience with Spider-Man, this is Black Suit Spider-Man, where he broke his camera and said, see you, chump, and just left. Eddie decides to fake a photo where Spider-Man looks like a thief. And he gets the job. Peter finds out that he's getting slandered. So he confronts Eddie, exposes him, and Eddie gets fired, obviously. And then Eddie goes to church, and he literally sits down and prays to God that he hoping God will kill Peter. And I'm like, Eddie, that's not how this works. But, eventually he gets infected with the symbiote. Symbiote falls on him, consumes him, and then he dies. It was just very like, why? Why are we doing this? You could have saved him for another movie. So yeah, that's why people didn't like Venom and Spider-Man 3. And people wanted Venom to get like some redemption. They wanted like another take on the character, like a better take on the character. And so it was like be years of a Venom movie that was in development. And I was like, is this gonna happen? Eventually it did happen, and this is what we got. And this movie's marketing campaign was weird because the first trailer showed no Venom. People were like, what the hell, man? Second trailer shows Venom, and people are like, okay, this is more like it. This movie might have something. And then the third trailer, we have the infamous, like a turd in the wind line. That just, I don't even know what to say about that. So that moment. And this movie kind of just became like a meme movie. And when it released, despite shit reviews, it did spectacular at the box office. It did great. opened with like $80 million, which was like the biggest ever for October at the time. The record would be broken like a year later with Joker. Yeah, 80 million opening. Its legs weren't even terrible. Made over 200 million domestically, 800 million worldwide. This movie did crazy in China. Like it popped off something fierce over there. Made over $270 million, which is just mental. So yeah, Venom was one of the biggest hits of 2018. Something no one could have predicted, like like months in advance. But yeah, so the first Venom, huge hit. So obviously you make more, right? It makes sense. So we have Venom 2. Venom Let There Be Carnage. This came out at a weird time. Movies were trying to come back after, COVID pretty much murdered the theatrical business. But, their movies were trying to come back, trying to get audiences back. And this movie did a good job at getting them back until No Way Home blew this movie out of the water completely. But this opened with like $90 million, which was like, damn, that's amazing. It was amazing back then. Made literally the same amount as the first movie domestically. Did a lot worse worldwide. That's mainly because China just didn't play the movie. I don't remember the exact reason why. I think they had like a ban or a boycott on Marvel movies or something like that. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's what went on. But yeah, still 500 million. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a nice number to have. So obviously, you make more. You make the last one, the last dance, if you will. And now we're here. So yeah, Venom's on-screen career has been very strange. um, but the Venom movies have made money, and they've kind of been audience favorites because of how goofy they are. So I will label that as a pro. Another pro is that competition wise, there's not much out there. I mean, there's Conclave, but that's way more low key than this. And all the October movies are more or less played out, and some just straight up dead, like Joker 2. And then November, there won't be like any big hits, I guess big movies coming out in November until the 15th, and that's with Red One. So this movie has time to play out in theory. So yeah, competition isn't a huge issue, so I'll label that as a pro. Um I don't know if I'll label anything else as a pro. I think that's really it. Okay, cons. Okay, reviews for this are bad. I know. Shocking, right? That's a 37% critic score, a 79% audience score, which seems like really low for this. like the like I remember the first two Venom movies having like a way better audience scores. But what's really concerning is its cinema score. It's a B minus, which is really bad. Like you are very much in the danger zone with that. And like the first two Venom movies, they both got B pluses. So this is a whole lot worse. And I mean this B minus, I mean it's worse than The Flash, it's worse than I think The Marvels. Yeah, it's worse than The Marvels. What was Madam Web? Madam Web was a C plus, so it's a step higher than that, and it's also a step higher than Morbius, also a C plus. Um, it's hard to. Ooh, Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix, the same grade, B minus. That is no good. um, so yeah, I mean it's no D like what Joker 2 had, but a B minus is not something you want to have. That tells me word of mouth is very mid and not enthusiastic. So yeah, bad reviews, bad cinema score, meh audience score. Those are all problems. So I'm gonna label that as a con. Another con: superhero movies. Man, they sure took a tumble, didn't happen they? I mean, like a decade ago, really decades ago, after like the first, well, I guess We got to go all the way back in time. Blade started the Renaissance. X-Men like took it to a whole nother level, and Spider-Man just went to the stratosphere with that level. So yeah, after Spider-Man, like superhero movies started to like blow up. They were all over the place because they became like profitable, and they became more financially appealing at that time. And the superhero movies were everywhere. You got your Batman movies, you had your Spider-Man movies, your X-Men movies. Then the MCU was born. Then DC tried to emulate that with the DCU, didn't work. Um, you got other movies out there like Sony with the Spider-Man movies, and then the Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies, which is what Venom 3 is a part of. And they were everywhere. And it seemed like the whole genre was invincible until it wasn't. You see, the 2020s has been rather rough on the genre. I mean, you still have your hits, but they still exist. But in the last year, it's been terrible. Just terrible in terms of superhero movies. I mean, when it comes to the amount of hits we've had since like 2023 and like 2024, you can literally count the number of hits on a Ninja Turtle hand because they only got 3 fingers. That's how many hits we're talking about here. Like we've only had Guardians 3, Across the Spider-Verse, and Deadpool Wolverine. And that's it. That's all we have. Everything else, flop. Straight flop. Just hard bomb. I mean, Ant-Man 3, Shazam 2, Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman 2, Madam Web, Marvels, Joker 2, disasters. They are all, none of them making any money. So that's a huge, huge problem. Now, when it comes to, I know superhero fatigue, that's been thrown around a lot for the last few years. Do I think it's a real thing? To some extent, yes, but I do feel like audiences are just becoming a lot more selective towards what they want to see. I mean, if superhero fatigue was like 100%, then Deadpool and Wolverine would have been a flop. Instead, it made $1.3 billion. So people were willing to watch that, and that's a superhero movie. So I just think audiences are just becoming selective. They're not just going to blindly consume superhero movies anymore. Right? I think people are become a lot smarter to that. So yeah, the rough state of the superhero movie genre, that's a massive con because that will like really like put an anchor on this movie. It's really gonna like drag it down because of the genre it's a part of. The genre just is not hitting the highs it once was like 5 to 10 years ago. So that's a con. Another con, it's preview numbers like 8.5 million. I mean, that sounds pretty good until you look at the other Venom movies. Then you realize there's a problem. So the first Venom, Turn in the Wind line and all, that opened with 10 million in previews. And then you got Let There Be Carnage. COVID affected marketplace and all, up of 11.6 million in previews. So as you can see, 8.5 is a lot lower than 11.6 and 10. That's quite a bit lower. It's a bit of a drop off. So that's a negative sign right there. I mean, look at Joker 2. I mean, I think I had a preview number like 7 million, and that completely collapsed. Grant, word of mouth on that movie was just horrid. But then Venom: The Last Dance's word of mouth isn't nowhere near as bad as that, because one, you're actually getting like what you paid for. With Joker 2, a lot of people weren't aware it was a musical. When they found out, oh boy, did not like it. They straight up walked out. This doesn't have that problem, but yeah, like these numbers, they're not good. They're just not good. So yeah, bad, like declining Thursday preview numbers. Label that as a con. And I think I've yeah, I think I went over like all the main points. So opening weekend, originally before October happened, I was thinking this would be a hit because the first two Venom movies were hits. So I thought Educated Guess would be the third movie would be a hit. Probably open like around the same range as the first two. Then once we got closer to release, those numbers started to drop. Ended up being like projected to hit like in the 60s, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. So yeah, it was projected to hit like 60 something million. But then I look at the numbers I'm seeing now, and they're so much worse. It's projected to hit 51 mil, in the low 50s, which is like, oof, that is rough. That is such a huge drop off from the other Venom movies, as I can show you right here. You know, 80 million, 90 million, 50 million, huge drop off. And oh damn, I forgot to mention the Spider-Man-less Spider-Man movies. The Sony, the SMU, whatever it is. Let's talk about that for a moment. I forgot to mention it. How could I? So this universe is considered to be a joke by a lot of fans for obvious reasons, because the fact that the Spider-Verse movies are even associated with this is a crime, but they don't deserve this. But these movies, the main issue is that all these like villains, they have to make them like anti-heroes because God forbid a villain be a villain, right? Like, because these movies, they all have to have like an antagonist. And like there's no Spider-Man there to do anything. These movies barely even acknowledge Spider-Man. Like the only one that really did was Venom Let There Be Carnage. That was because of the multiverse aspect. And then Morbius with Vulture. I'm not even gonna go over that. That's just that's just a slap in the face to logic. And yeah, it's just these movies, they're just seen as jokes. They're not good. Like Morbius, no one really remembers the movie all that much. Well, some people probably remember the movie. I know I do, but more people remember for all the memes. The more $1 billion and it's Morbin time and all that. I mean, that was a fun time. I won't lie. And then Sony, in their infinite wisdom, re-released the movie because they thought the memes, you let the positive, like I guess positive feedback when it was all ironic, and then the movie failed again. So that was a fun time. And then Madam Web earlier this year was a joke. The trailer told you, yep, this movie's gonna be ass, and it was. But admittedly, it's a movie I can laugh at because of how just incompetent it is. But yeah, these movies are just not good, and yeah, obviously people aren't going to take the Venom the Last Dance seriously. And as I'm looking at the box office, I'm like, yep, people, this is not good. So Craven the Hunter, that's next on the list. The odds are stacked against that. Like seriously, I wouldn't be surprised if it did worse than Morbius. I don't know if it'll do as bad as Madam Web. I don't think it'll do that bad, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a Morbius-esque flop. But yeah, the Sony's Spider-Man-less Spider-Man universe, that's a con by itself because it's a joke. But anywho, so opening weekend, I guess I'm gonna go with 50 million, 50 to 55 million. It's total. Its legs probably won't be very good. So 120. I don't think it's gonna collapse on the level of Joker 2. God no, that movie evaporated so fast. That's not gonna happen with Venom 3. But I don't expect this movie to have a long life. And overseas is gonna have to really like it's got to make that money because yikes, it's a flop here. So yeah. So that's it. That's it for the weekend. And we're done with October. Thank God. This month sucked, dude. It was ass. Now we move on to November. and it starts. Well, it's not good because we got four movies here. None of them look like hits in my eyes. The one that has the best chances here, and even then, I don't really see that being a huge hit. So November's gonna start on a low note. So that's fun. So yeah, stay tuned for all these prediction videos next week. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share the whole drill. You want to check out more videos like this? Got playlists on the homepage, all previous prediction videos I made this year, the past few years. You want to watch any of those videos, go right ahead. There's also box office recaps where I go over the box office results for any particular month. October recap. That will be within that will I'll upload that before mid-November. And boy, I feel like a real goober thinking about November. I thought, man, November, October, Joker 2 and Venom 3, they're going to be hits. They're going to be such hits. They're going to make some money. And now here are both those movies is falling flat on their faces. So yeah, I feel like a total goober thinking they had a chance of being big money hits. So yeah, I get to talk about that. So stay tuned. But if you want to watch any of the past recap videos I made on the channel, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. Venom. I talked about Venom 3 1, 2, 3, 5 times. Looks like 5 times. Yeah, 5 times. So the first time was episode 121. That in that episode talk about the Barbie movie, Kelly versus Acme being delayed, later canned by Warner Brothers because they're fucking idiots. The Batman 2 and Ghostbusters, well, didn't have a title yet. I called it Ghostbusters 4, but Frozen Empire. When those all got announced. So that was the first time. The second time was episode 195. I talked about Wicked Part 2 and some Sony movies getting 2024 and 2025 dates. I wasn't sure if they were for Spider-Man 4 or Venom 3. I was right with Venom 3. I was correct with that. Spider-Man 4, no. Although yesterday, that got a 2026 release date, and I imagine Sony right now, they're hoping like 2026 needs to come sooner rather than later because oof, they're gonna need some serious Spider-Man money because these Spider-Man-less movies are not working out. So that was the second time I talked about Venom 3. Third time was episode 199. Just when the strikes were happening. I talked about Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter, Beyond the Spider-Verse. Where the hell is it, Sony? Where is that movie? Please, I'll watch it. I'll be there. Please tell me when it's coming out, please. I need an update. And in Venom 3. So, which got a release date. So, at that time. So that was the third time. Fourth time was episode 215. Was all about Venom 3, where that got delayed to November. So yeah. And then the final time was episode 238. I talked about Venom 3, now with the title The Last Dance. I talked about that alongside The Batman Part 2, Alto Nights, and Salem's Lot. So, yeah. Those are the 5 times I talked about Venom 3. So if you want to watch those episodes or any other episodes I've made on Venom 3, the canceled series, you want to binge them all, go right ahead. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.